Alicia, and today we'll be talking about healing after heartbreak. So I remember before I actually experienced romantic heartbreak, I would completely underestimate. I'm like, worse things can happen, you're fine, like move on, there are better people out there, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't realize how difficult it is to process that emotion and how difficult it is to deal with the fact that you had a hope for something and it didn't pan out that way. And I realized that heartbreaks are really difficult to deal with, and we don't really talk about that as often as we should, especially in the church. Especially Christians often will kind of give this idea, well, that person wasn't right for you, God has something better, you'll be okay. I just wish we sat with that emotion a little bit longer and let people process and deal with, and not jump all the way to the reconciliation, all the way to the conclusion, all the way to the it'll be better scenario. Like, let's sit with the emotion. So throughout this video, I want to use the word heartbreak versus breakup. Even if I do mess up, I do mean heartbreak. Just because you weren't necessarily in a committed relationship with someone doesn't make the pain hurt any less. And thinking about healing from a heartbreak, one of my favorite quotes from Maya Angelou, I think it can be applied to so many different situations, is when she says, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And I love that quote because I think in terms of healing from a relationship, that quote has two folds. So the first one is that you never forget the pain that you experience as a result of either what was going on in the relationship or the aftermath. And so you never forget that pain. But you also never forget the giddy moments, the times when you were happy and excited and all those good moments. And throughout the healing process, both of those emotions are going to come out. So that goes into my first kind of set of advice when dealing with healing from a breakup or a heartbreak, is to be honest about your emotions. I remember I experienced a breakup and people would ask me like, oh, how are you doing? And they would ask like super casually. So it's like, can I tell you that I'm struggling right now? Probably not. So I'd just be like, oh, I'm fine. But then I'd go home at night and like cry in my journal, write in my journal. And I was sad and I didn't know how to express that to other people. And so I just want to encourage you to be honest with yourself. Don't feel like just because other people tell you, that person wasn't good for you, you can move on, that you can't sit with those emotions. Or don't feel like you can't experience it because they're like, oh, well, something better is happening for you. Something better is going to happen for you. It's okay to have those emotions and deal with them in your own time. And so that was something that I needed to hear, and I didn't hear enough, was like, don't feel like you have to get over it right away. After a pretty rough breakup, I had a period of singleness, and then I, started getting out there again. I found someone and we had a relationship for a while. Things were going well, at least I thought they were. And one night, right after, Christmas had just finished, we had all the lovey-dovey, like, oh, Christmas, blah, 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 experience. And then we're on FaceTime. It's like kind of quiet, and I'm watching The Bachelor, eating my little chocolate chip cookies, enjoying life. And he's like, I think we should split. So I was like, wait, what? Maybe, you know how you like turn up your phone when you feel like you can't hear? So, oh, duh. I turned my phone, I'm like, wait, what do you mean we should split? I'm like trying to think of all the scenarios. I literally could not think of breaking up at that point because of where we were in the relationship, at least for me. And so we did end up, it meant like breaking up. And I remember the shock of that moment. And that night I just was overwhelmed and cried, and I was like, oh my gosh, how do I deal with this? I've already kind of talked to people about how I feel like this guy is exactly who I want in my life, and he's so supportive and blah, 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 like all these nice things about him. And so there was a lot of disappointment there. And then the next morning when I went to work, I had like 2 hours of free time. So I got to my job, and then I had 2 hours of free time before I needed to work. And so I just sat there in the office. I'm like trying not to cry because all I can do is just sit there and think about like what happened last night. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. And it was super heavy, and I had to be there in those emotions and kind of compartmentalize them to be like, okay, I'm gonna deal with this later. I'm at work right now. I need to focus on work as much as I can. And so I tried to do that, but I do think you need to make space for those emotions. So if it's not in those 2 hours where I wasn't working, when I got home, I was like, I need to address these. And that's what I did. I think one of the hardest things about breakups is that routine that you get used to. And you just get used to being a person in a relationship. So you don't get those good morning texts anymore. You don't stay up with someone at night and have someone say goodnight to you as like the last goodnight you hear. and all those things that you get used to when you're in the relationship. So when they're gone, it can feel like chaos. And I don't think we talk about that enough, about how difficult it is to go from expecting something every morning and night and expecting someone to constantly be checking up on you, constantly reminding you of like how much they love you and how much they appreciate you, and then to have all that taken away. That's jarring, and that's something that's very difficult to get used to. And one of my favorite breakup songs, and it has a good beat, so I feel like sometimes we bypass the lyrics, but I love Neo's So Sick. I know that's a throwback, but Neo's So Sick, when he talks about changing the answering machine because they're not together anymore, the answering machine says we, and he's alone. Then he talks about how, you know, he's looking at the calendar, and on the calendar, their anniversary date is, you know, marked. He's like, well, that date doesn't matter anymore. And so just thinking about all of those routines that you now have to fix and the different ways you have to think about life. And I feel like that kind of sounds dramatic, but it's true. Like, a lot of things alter when you experience that heartbreak. Another one of the hardest things to deal with is when you feel like you cared more. So in the scenario where you get heartbroken from a crush, or even if you were in a relationship and you felt like you cared more, like, no one likes that. That's a real hard hit to the pride. You know, no one likes to feel played. No one likes to feel fooled. And so that's difficult to do. And I think you have to be honest and sit in those emotions. And I just wanted to make this video to affirm that, yes, what you're experiencing is valid and you're allowed to have those feelings. And then another aspect of that is that I was really frustrated with God when it came to my experiences of heartbreak. So in one relationship, I was frustrated because one of the reasons that we did break up was because my partner felt like, I don't know if God wants me to be in this relationship, which is a whole nother video and a whole nother discussion. But that created constant tension in our relationship, and then it had me questioning what I believed, what I was doing, and if that was even valid of a reason to say you want to break up with someone. And I know we can talk about that in the comments if you want to talk more about that. But to me, it was difficult because I'm like questioning who I was and what I was doing in terms of my relationship with God. And then in my next relationship, it was literally like everything, I won't say everything, but a lot of the things that I was struggling in, my other partner doesn't know if he can support the fact that I'm into this. Well, this partner can support that. My other partner doesn't know if he believes this. Oh, my other partner does believe it. And so it was a lot of that. So it felt like God was affirming, like, yes, this is the relationship you should be in. Yes, this is the person you should be with. And so when that did end up ending like it did, I was like, God, what are you doing? Like what is going on? For me, it was like hard to be like, wow, I thought that I finally got it. You know, I thought that I was finally at the point that I was supposed to be at and with the person I was supposed to be with. And then that just wasn't the case. And so I had to be honest about those emotions and talk to God, and in frustration, like in prayers, I was like, God, what do you, like, what? Can you explain how this is? And then there's a lot of me that was just like, well, maybe this is just like a period and things will come back together or something like that. And I think I needed to have those conversations with God, and that frustration to be like, God, I don't understand why this is happening. I don't understand how this makes sense. What was the point of putting me in that situation? What's the point of allowing me to go in that relationship? And I don't think anyone likes to feel like others have power over them. And so I think when it comes to a breakup, you can feel like, I didn't get a say in this. You just chose to not want to be with me. I don't like that. And maybe that's just me because I'm like power hungry or something weird. But it was hard for me to be like, wow, you made a decision and I can't convince you not to make that decision. Although part of the process of breaking up is having the ability to process those emotions that you have, I do think it's important not to wallow in emotions. So don't wallow in those emotions, because I think if you do wallow, then you're unable to see the beautiful things that are a part of your life. You have to say to yourself, I will have a period of time in my day where I'm going to deal with this emotion, but I'm not going to make this emotion my day. So you can't help with what comes into your head, but you can like bind that idea, if that makes sense. So if I wake up in the morning and I'm feeling sad, that I get a good morning text. So what can I do about that? Not let it ruin my day. I can say, I didn't get that good morning text. I'm sad about it, but I'm going to keep moving today and I'm going to make today a good day. So I'm going to go get my favorite coffee. I'm going to go hang out with this friend for breakfast or something, just to start my day well. Whatever you need to do to not let that moment, because those moments are going to happen. You can't get away from that moment, because that's just how the process of healing, taking those routines that you were used to in the relationship and replacing them with other routines, The key to this is not to wallow, but you also don't want to distract yourself away from feeling what you're feeling, because if you do that, then you're not being honest to how you feel. So there's a way to change up your routines, but also say, I'm sad about this. So in that morning example, I'm going to acknowledge that it makes me sad that I'm not receiving this text, but I'm also going to acknowledge that I have many other things that are going to go well today, and many other things that I'm happy about and excited about, and great things that are happening in my life that don't involve a significant other. Another aspect of healing from your breakup, and this is one that I needed to be reminded of so many times, like so many times, is don't contact that significant other, don't contact that crush, whoever it is that you're experiencing heartbreak with. Do not contact that individual. And the reason you shouldn't do that is because, and I know there are other, I'm sure there are scenarios where you feel like you need to contact, but I'm going to be very strict about this one. Don't contact, because the likelihood of that conversation, that text, that picture, whatever it is, bringing you clarity is very unlikely. What it's going to do is it's going to make things more muddy, it's going to make things unclear, and it's going to prolong your process. When I was going through that second breakup, Elizabeth Earshaw, she is Liz Listens on Instagram, actually had a post that came up, and it was talking about why you shouldn't contact your ex post breakup. And so she talks about how dopamine, which is our reward center in our brain, what'll happen is, like I was saying earlier about how the Maya Angelou quote, that you'll never forget how people make you feel. So those giddy, excited emotions, things that make you feel loved and supported in the relationship, you'll think about them, you're like, oh, I wish I had that. And so you'll be tempted to text a person. So when you text the person, if they text in any way you contact them, if they respond, they're actually increasing that dopamine in you. So when they increase that dopamine, you're going to keep craving it. So you're going to keep wanting to contact that person, and all that's going to do is keep you attached to that individual that you're contacting. So it's going to be really difficult to create a very stern, like it's over in your head if you're constantly getting dopamine from this person. And so then she talks about how opposite that, if you're craving this dopamine, you want to talk to this person, and you text them and you don't get a response, that's just going to prolong the grief process. So either way, it's going to prolong the grief process, because the first way, you're going to get that response, and then at some point the response is going to stop being positive, or it's not going to lead to where you want it to lead, which is probably the relationship coming back together. And so I love this because I remember there were times when I was just like, I just need to know. Clarity was like my favorite word. I'd be like, I just need clarity on this. I'm trying to figure out why this happened, because I like do a lot of self-inventory, self-reflection. So I'm like, I just need to know, please give me insight. And then when I wouldn't get a response back, I remember that process being really difficult, because I didn't say it's over and have that firm line in my head that it's over. And I constantly tried to contact. I've experienced that. Like, that being ignored is hard and it hurts a lot, because it's like, wow, you saw this and you decided that I didn't mean enough to you to give me a response. I didn't mean enough to you for you to decide to value how I was feeling in the situation. You were okay with just cutting it clear. And so in order for me to heal and process it, I had to also cut it clear in my mind. When I didn't get that response, that was a clear, direct message to me. No response is a response, and you have to honor that. If the person doesn't respond to you, there's a reason. And I mean, I kind of want to sound hopeful, but I know how it can be when you kind of get your hopes up and you're like, maybe process it, and then to be disappointed again. So dealing with the breakup could have been here, but I've prolonged the process, and so now it's out here. I just don't want that for you. I want you to be able to process the breakup, deal with the emotions, not wallow in those emotions. Don't contact the individual, and find yourself out of it. And then along with that, delete pictures, delete reminders that are going to make you crave the relationship. So going back to what Liz Listen says about dopamine, if you're looking at the pictures, I remember, I would literally, after the breakup, go through the pictures and be like, oh, I remember that. We had so much fun there. Oh, he was so sweet when he did that. I would do that, and all that would do was just make me sadder, because I wasn't getting that response back. I wasn't getting I missed that from my ex. And so that was difficult to process. The next thing I want to talk about is the importance of investing in friendships after a breakup. I think sometimes what happens when you're in a romantic relationship or you're crushing on someone, you focus in on that person and you forget that you have all these other relationships in your life. don't do that. Try your hardest not to do that. But if you're now healing from a breakup, really invest in those friendships. Something that really helped me in one of my breakups is I would love when my best friend would just knock on my door. And I'd be like, oh, it's so nice to see a friend, because what was I about to do? I was about to cry into the pillow. Thank you for visiting. Thank you for being there. And that was really helpful, because it wasn't like she was making it about, oh my God, you just went through a breakup. We have to make you feel better. It just felt like she was loving and supporting me. And it wasn't about, you just went through a breakup, but it's like, I want to love and support you. I mean, that's helpful, because you don't want, when you've gone through a breakup or heartbreak, or if your friend is going through heartbreak, you don't want them to feel like you're pitying them and you're like, okay, you went through a heartbreak, let me make you feel better. But it's like, no, I just want you around. And I think that helps you with the dopamine and things that you experience in a relationship, to feel that closeness and bond and support from your friends is lovely. Friends can give you perspective on the breakup. Sometimes that's not helpful, sometimes it is. So it just depends. So if you feel like, okay, this conversation is not helpful, you back your friend away from it. And then also, I think they can help you not wallow, because when you would have spent that night crying into your pillow, your friend's like, let's watch a movie. And so now you're spending 2 hours focused on this movie, just to get your mind off of it, because you don't need to spend, like I said earlier, you don't need to spend your entire day wallowing in that pain, although you're going to process and experience it. Your friendships are not going to be the perfect replacement for that romantic need. It's not going to be like that, but I do think that it is helpful to have friends that support you and hype you up. One of my favorite things, like pretty recently after my breakup, me and my friends like got dressed and we went out, and I just felt good. It felt good to get out, and it felt good to look good. I know things are different now, so that might not be possible in certain cases, but just to find ways to make yourself feel good. I mean, people always make the joke about, when the breakup's over, when she gets a haircut or like dyes her hair or whatever. But do stuff that makes you feel good. Make yourself feel good. Give yourself relaxing spa nights. Like, spend time really pampering yourself. I do think when you're experiencing heartbreak, it's important to do self-reflection. And so this doesn't mean that you spend time beating yourself up like, oh my gosh, this would have never happened if I was better at this. Because I think sometimes after breakups especially, you're thinking like, oh, what did I do wrong? And sometimes your partner will tell you, you did X, Y, and Z wrong, and I wanted you to do this, and you didn't do this for me. And sometimes that can be helpful, and sometimes it can be like, okay, you just wanted somebody else. I'm doing good with who I am. I'm proud to hold the beliefs I hold. I'm proud to be the person that I am, and you just weren't ready for that, or you just weren't interested in that. And that's cool. Like, go find whoever you want to be with. But that's not going to affect my self-esteem. Don't let anyone make you feel like you're a problem or a burden or anything like that. I know that I am a commitment-driven person, and I need quality time. People talk about the 5 love languages. If you're familiar with that, my love language is quality time. And so when I don't get that quality time, that affects how I feel in a relationship. And so spend that time doing that inventory after the relationship. Like, okay, that relationship didn't work. In what ways did I contribute to that? In what ways was it just, not going to work? In what ways did the other person in the relationship contribute to it? Of course, you want time for self-improvement, but also don't feel like you need to change completely who you are because one person didn't see your value. Another aspect of the self-reflection piece is that I think we often ask ourselves, how could I not get hurt again? And this is a question that I ask myself a lot, especially after my first breakup. I was like, how could I not get hurt again? What did I do that was wrong? How could I protect myself? And I know for me, I fall in love very quickly. I'm a very feelings-driven person. When I get a good feeling about something, I kind of go for it. I had to tell myself, I know that's who I am. How is that going to affect future relationships? And what I told myself, I'm like, love is a risk, and it's always going to be a risk. You're not the only person in a relationship. It's you and someone else. All you can do is be the best you can be the best partner you can be a good listener, be a good helper, be a good support. But that person also needs to do the same things for you. Like, it shouldn't be one-sided. So what I'm trying to say is that love is a risk, and there's no guarantee that if you get to a place where you feel like you can have a healthy relationship, and you understand what it takes to have a healthy relationship, and you feel like you've met someone that also believes that, it doesn't necessarily mean that that relationship will be perfect and there will be no heartbreak at the end. I think we have to be honest with ourselves and say, whenever we enter into a relationship, whenever we fall in love with someone, we are taking a risk. love is risky and a beautiful thing. It is so beautiful to have the privilege and opportunity to get to know someone and love them and support them. All I can say for the not getting hurt is never stay in a situation where you do not feel honored, respected, loved, and supported. If you don't feel those things, remove yourself out of the relationship. It's gonna hurt, but that process of removing yourself and then starting your life again is gonna be a lot shorter than if you continue in that relationship and then decide to leave. And then my last thing to say in this video is that there is an after the heartbreak. The heartbreak you're experiencing may feel really strong and like, I don't know how I'm gonna escape this, and I'm just having all these emotions and they're intense, and I'm having these wants and desires, and I just feel like, how am I gonna get out of this? And it's intense, it's very intense. And I'm gonna share some of my like journal entries that I had, because I think one of the most beautiful things about keeping a journal when you're experiencing heartbreak is you can go back to different entries and be like, this is how I was feeling, and today I don't feel that at all. So it's beautiful. It's a beautiful reminder that we experience things and we can come out of them. And I love to have that catalog, so I can say, in April 2017, I was crushed. In October, I was feeling better. Once we got to like November, it was a little hard with the holidays, so I kind of fell back a little bit. But then once we got to January, I was feeling great. I was talking to different people, which is another thing. Like once you kind of get to a point where you feel like I might still have feelings for that person, like it still hurts a little. I mean, I obviously have feelings, but it still hurts, but I'm willing to give this another chance, give love another chance. Then that's, you start talking to people. And so being able to catalog that, I think is one of the best things ever. So I'd love to be able to say, if things don't work out, I know I'm going to make it through. If things don't work out, it's going to be difficult, but I know there are more things to my life. I have things that I'm doing that are essential to who I am that don't involve a significant other. Along with that, I love listening to music throughout breakups. And so I remember pretty early on, my first breakup, I remember Thank You Next just came out, and I love that song. At the time, I would listen to it like almost every day, multiple times, like 5 times a day. I listened to it because I love the reminder that she's talking about. I'm thankful that I had this experience. And especially when she gets to that part where she's talking about how, and I met somebody else, and she's saying that someone else is me. I learned who I am, I know what I want, and I'm excited for the life that I'm going to have now that I've processed these breakups. I'm curious on what songs you've listened to that helped you through heartbreak. So these can be those inspirational songs. If you have like that, Jason Mraz vibe, love is still the answer, even though I'm struggling. They could be the songs that make you feel powerful, like Beyonce's Irreplaceable, if that's, more your thing, or songs that make you feel like you just listen to because you want to cry and you want to be sad, and it's okay. I know it sounds weird to say you want to be sad. The songs you listen to when you're like, I just need to sit with the emotion. So let me know in the comments what those songs are, and if you have any other advice for how to deal with breakups. As always, you are loved, you are affirmed, stay uncovered.